Am I the only person in the country who was not at all surprised or shocked when I heard this?
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
That was Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen confirming that the trip he took to El Salvador to meet with an El Salvadorian man who was deported from the United States and held incarcerated in El Salvador, this trip that he took to meet this alleged MS-13 gang member was paid for by you and by me and by all the taxpayers here in the United States of America, just like all the other worthless trips these people take. You know who was not at all excited to hear that Chris Van Hollen's trip was paid for by taxpayer dollars? Tom Homan, border czar.
What bothers me more than that is a U.S. Senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You got over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is an historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I've met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by an illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
And the biggest problem is this was a total waste of time and money. Nothing positive happened. This dude is still sitting in a prison in El Salvador, and all Chris Van Hollen did was head down to the tropics for a couple days over Easter, drink some margaritas, come back and become a superstar because now he's on every single Sunday morning talk show. Everybody's mentioning his name. Everybody's putting his picture up, and his video clips are all over the internet.
So what did Abrego Garcia tell you?
He told me about the trauma he had been experiencing, both in terms of the abduction and the fact that he was originally sent to CCOT, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah, we've seen the
He told me
images.
how much he missed his wife and his kids. He specifically mentioned his 5-year-old boy who has autism because that boy had been in the car with him when U.S. agents had stopped them and handcuffed him and then taken him away. So he described all that, and he told me that he had moved recently to a new prison facility. So those are some of the highlights.
It's interesting that he would bring up Abrego Garcia's wife because we now know that she went to court not once, but twice to get a restraining order against the guy because he was abusing her at home. And she was on ABC News with Michael Strahan, who asked her about it point blank. And she, reacted this way.
You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Tell me you're married to an MS-13 gang member without telling me you're married to an MS-13 gang member. In fact, President Donald Trump over the weekend posted something on his Truth Social. It was a photo of him holding up a photo of Abrego Garcia's hand tattoos, which clearly show MS-13 markings on his left hand. There's so much about this trip that doesn't add up. Like, for example, Senator Van Hollen said he didn't even think to ask MS-13 gang member Abrego Garcia if he was in fact an MS-13 gang member.
President Trump says that some of Abrego Garcia's tattoos signify that he's a member of MS-13. In 2019, police alleged a confidential informant claimed that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13 member. His wife and his attorney deny that, of course. Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. They are trying to litigate on social media what they should be doing in the courts. They need to put up or shut up in the courts. Let me tell you, and I decided to write this down so I could be absolutely accurate as to what Federal District Court Judge Zinnes said about these allegations by the Trump administration. Quote, "No evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity has been presented to the court." That's where to litigate this. It's been litigated in many other places. So I'm not going to get into the details because the whole purpose of our court system is for them to adjudicate these things, not for Donald Trump to go off on social media.
Yeah, you're right. They have not, there hasn't been a court hearing for them to put forward evidence in the first place, which is your whole point. But since you were the one person to have met with him, and since this is a thing, you say on social media, it's what we hear from Donald Trump and Republicans every day, all day long, you didn't ask him?
I didn't ask him that because I know what his answer is.
I know what his answer is. Well, of course, his answer is going to be no. And no MS-13 gang member would ever lie about being an MS-13 gang member. But of course, it's not just that Chris Van Hollen, it's not just that Chris Van Hollen, who's a senator from Maryland and who's supposed to be working to fight for his American constituents, people that actually vote for him and pay taxes in this country and, you know, don't beat their wives or break the law. It's not just that he's down in El Salvador spending your money to try to get this man freed and bring him back to the United States of America. It's that he completely misses the entire point about why most Americans, the majority of them, and President Donald Trump included, don't want illegal thug MS-13 gang member, murderer, human trafficker, drug dealers in this country at all.
I'm not sure why Abrego Garcia's rights should be denied based on an awful murder that he had absolutely nothing to do with.
He's trying to make President Donald Trump out to be the bad guy in all of this, claiming that he's defying a court order and that he's trying to litigate this, well, in the court of public opinion.
Well, what Donald Trump is trying to do is change the subject. Let's make no bones about that, right? This subject is that the Trump administration's ignoring a Supreme Court order 9-0 to facilitate his return because they admitted in court, the Trump administration, that he'd been wrongfully detained. Now, what I have said is Donald Trump and his administration need to put up or shut up in court instead of litigating this through social media.
But the big problem that we have with Senator Chris Van Hollen isn't that he used taxpayer dollars to travel to El Salvador to meet okay, that is a problem we have with Chris Van Hollen. But another problem we have with Chris Van Hollen is that he continues to claim that this guy is somehow a Maryland man or an American citizen or deserves the same rights and responsibilities and treatment that American law-abiding citizens receive.
I think at some point, the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who had been absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons.
You know what really looks bad? When you get called out for spending taxpayer dollars on a trip to El Salvador to drink margaritas with a gang member.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.